Hello, 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 everyone. How are you doing? Good evening and welcome. How are you, Guilherme?
I am very well indeed. Nice to be here again, Rafael.
Yeah. I need to start today with an apology because I think it was my mistake and I scheduled a live to a different time. I think it's scheduled for 8:40. In reality, it's 8:30. It didn't change. So apologize for the confusion. Um, but anyways, this is your usual time to talk. Um, welcome once again. These are our live conversations every 2 weeks, talking about mediumship. I'm Rafael, this is Guilherme, and we are the co hosts of the show. Um, as usual, I need to give a shout out to our broadcasters and sponsors. Don't know if I can call them sponsors. Anyways, the institutions behind this initiative: Spiritist Society of London. Guilherme and I are both part of that study group dedicated to studying Spiritism in the UK. You have sessions on Tuesdays online and Thursdays face to face. BUS, the British Union of Spiritist Societies. BUS is an umbrella organization, a federation of societies here in the UK, also dedicated to spreading the knowledge on Spiritism. And finally, Kardec Radio, our great partner that helps us spreading all of that knowledge about Spiritism. Kardec Radio has been around for over 10 years now, bringing so much content you can't even imagine. So, by the way, they have a great app, Kardec Radio. So go to your Apple Store or Play Store or whatever store you use, download the app so you can access all that content. With that said, today we are on our 13th encounter. Time flies when you're having fun. And we are addressing the following question: can we be possessed by spirits? It's quite, I guess, fitting question. We've been talking about mediumship for so many weeks now, so many months, and we learned so much that we are all exposed or susceptible to the influence of spirits, that the ideas and reflections and the things that we are used to seeing around and hearing about um, spirits and mediums and so on start to pop in our minds. And the reason why we are addressing this specific question today is actually questions that we received in our last session when we were still talking about um, the childhood and mediumship. One of our friends online dropped a few questions. Then I'm going to bring them up again so we can develop the subject on it. Um, Before I say that, let me just double check some comments already. Oh, I want to say hi to Elsa. Elsa's already asking, is possessed and subjugated the same meaning? We will see. We will see. Um, but I can anticipate possessed is not the best term once we understand how things work. But we're gonna get there. Um, Anyways, Um, where are we this tonight? Let me just see if there's anyone else here. I just want to double check. If you are watching us and joining us, please. The main point of this chat is your participation. Drop your notes, drop your comments, drop your cases. I'll bring them up here and we will make this as dynamic as possible with your participation. So, where is this question coming from? Our friend Silas dropped those questions um, on YouTube 2 weeks ago. So, what is the short definition of medium? Does it include a person who makes contact with entities during dreams, or is it only the automatic writing? Quite a broad question. Then he asked, is there a distinction between conscious and unconscious contact? And then the final one, what is your comment on the overrunning of our physical bodies by spiritual entities in an unconscious states? This can be dangerous, and it's the reason the church has been actively antagonistic. A lot of questions that we can talk about. So we're going to start from the beginning, and then we'll get to the main one, which is the final one, so we can develop that. And as a reminder, whenever you're talking about mediums here, just a reminder, our understanding is that we are all mediums because medium is anyone who can suffer the influence of spirits, and we are all susceptible to the influence of spirits. However, there are people who have that ability or that skill a bit more developed, and we call them ostensive mediums. Usually, when we're talking about if you're a medium or not, we're talking about ostensive mediums. That is people who can hear, see, receive messages, write, automatic writing, and so on. So that was just a very short way of just answering the first one. The second one, distinction between conscious and unconscious contact. That one we can develop a little bit more before we go in. And I've been talking nonstop for 7 minutes. Guilherme, do you want to take that on you, please?
I don't even know where to start, to be honest, because it depends on our understanding what is conscious and unconscious, you know? Because conscious means awaken, unconscious means sleeping. Because we know that when we go to our bed at the end of the day, what rests is our physical body. Our spirit still have the same abilities. So it's a trick question. And contacts, am I right to say contacts? We're trying to say that spiritist contact or spirit influence. So at the base, there is no difference if you are conscious or unconscious. If a spirit come closer to you and you start to feel some sensations. But in that one, I would have more questions than answers, to be honest, because it could be very wide, that possibility. I will try to drive the answer to the point I've started, that I will consider myself conscious when I'm awakened and unconscious when I'm sleeping, right? So no, the mechanism of influence is the same. The way you perceive the information is a bit different, right? Because when you are sleeping, sometimes you can retain some of the information, most of the time not, but you can retain some information. And when you are awakened, yes, you have all the feelings. You know, I'm having chills, I'm having a pressure or whatever. So my short answer, yes. The contact between spirits and the incarnated spirits that we are is basically the same when we are awakened or when we are sleeping.
When I read that distinction between conscious and unconscious contact, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the part of the medium's book where there's a description of different types of mediums and the different effects that they have and so on. And as I think, as Guilherme was saying, the distinction itself, in terms of the mechanism, I don't think there is much there. It's more related to if somebody is receiving a message or something, depending on the type of mediumship that they have and the type of connection their spirit has, or how loose, in very simplistic terms, the connection can get between their spirit and their body. So their perispirit. That's what sometimes allows them to be conscious or unconscious in specific cases. But what I would say is, based on the Medium's book and a lot of Andrea Luiz as well, the spirits will always the incarnate spirits are always have an impression of what something that's going on. In a few cases, they have zero, I guess, understanding or recollection of what happened. They might not know the content of the message, so on, but they understand the situation that they were in. But again, it's not a rule. I don't think you can say that's a rule. Yeah, Guilherme, go.
If we connect the second question with the first one, that would not a different scenario. That is when we are sleeping, that could be unconscious, if you like, and then we have contact with the spiritual world, that we all do. If that is the direction he had, or at least the thought he had in mind for his question, no, this mechanism is the same. It's perispirit to perispirit anyway, so that there is not a change. And I was just trying to figure out what was really driving to the question.
Okay. I think that leads us to the third question, which is probably the one that is going to drive a lot of the conversations today. So Silas asked, what is your comment on the overrunning of our physical bodies by spiritual entities in an unconscious state? This can be dangerous, and it is a reason the church has been actively antagonistic. So again, I think coming from a lot of assumptions. If Sila is out there and he wants to develop a bit more, please drop those comments in the box so we can bring them up. But what I would say is, when we were talking about perispirit a few sessions ago, I think in session 2 or 1, or anyways, the beginning, we were understanding the connection between physical body and spirit through the perispirit. Specifically, we were talking about how does the formation of the perispirit, formation not the right word, but what kind of impressions the perispirit automatically generates or creates or takes from the physical body in the moment of disconnect, the moment of death. If you think about that, but in reverse, that means that instead of the disconnection from the physical body, the moment of connection with the physical body, and how each cell that develops from the embryo all the way into a formed person, then from a baby to a child, and it grows on and so on. The connection between the perispirit and the body is at molecular level. It's just so intrinsic that it wouldn't be possible for another spirit to take over completely someone else's body, because of the level of connection and how the process for that connection to be put in place happened through more than 9 months, but through many years as we become formed adults and people. So I think that's a good one for us just to keep in mind, that to a certain extent, if you're talking about spirits overrunning or taking over, it's not quite to that stage, because physically that wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't make sense. Guilherme, do you want to add something?
Yeah. What I would say, everything can be dangerous. Everything. If you have your car, you have an engine problem, you take to someone you don't know, you are in risk that the person does not know that well how to fix the car. Instead of fix your car, create another problem. What I'm trying to say is we need to understand how the mechanism works. We need to study. We need to practice in a safe environment. And if we do that, we minimize the risk. Likewise, if you take your car with any problem to a garage, a well-known garage, the chances are that will be well served. And the spirit don't take over, overrunning your own body. The best way to give you an example, he can stay close to you. You can have a communication, a verbal, a written, whatever. He can go away, or in some cases, he prolonged his time beside the medium. To someone that's looking from outside, you won't see the spirit, so you think the spirit jumping inside his body and stay there. But that's not the way it happens. Basically, it's like he's giving you a very tight hug, and he don't let you go. Does it happen? Yes, it does. It does. But if you understand how that happens, you know that your own spirit is still there, but you are into a more persistent influence. I think that's a nice and complicated way to put it.
Yeah. No, it's this is an interesting topic, and there's a lot to unfold, to be honest. But I think we did the first step. I want to bring a question here from the Spirit's book, because I'm going to make the connection with the possession now, right? As Guilherme was saying, we have the idea, like in movies and stories and horrors and so on, that somebody's possessed by a devil or the demon or demon or something. And we've even seen some cartoons, the spirit goes in and jumps in and takes over the body. And as Guilherme was saying, that's not quite how it works. But Kardec, in his divine inspiration, asked those questions specifically to the spirits as well. So I'm going to bring the first one here. There's actually a specific section of the Spirit's book talking about that. I'm going to bring the first one here so we can take a look together to initiate that understanding. So from the Spirit's book, this is part 2, chapter 9, question 473. Can a spirit temporarily take over the corporeal envelope of a living person? In other words, can it enter an animate body and replace the spirit incarnated in it? Exactly what we're talking about. The question is exactly what we're talking about. The spirit said, a spirit does not enter a body as you enter a house. Instead, it associates with an incarnate spirit who has its same defects and qualities, so that they can both act conjointly. Nevertheless, it is always the incarnate spirit who acts upon the matter enveloping it and according to its own wishes. A spirit cannot replace the one who is incarnate, because the spirit is connected to the body until the time set for the end of its material existence. It's one paragraph, but there's a lot in this paragraph. There's a lot in this, a lot of references that we can pick here. First one we already said, spirits cannot take over someone else's body. They are saying here, it's always the incarnate spirit who acts upon the matter. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Because we could argue then, if regardless of my state, I'm always the one connected to the body, is the one responsible for the actions in the matter, could the other spirit then influence, involve, inspire, control, deceit the other spirit in terms of controlling their ideas so that it manipulates them to take specific actions and so on. That's a different question. Guilherme, you made a face that you were something to talk.
No, spoiler alert. No.
Okay. So that is a different question, because remember, we've been talking about how we are all, if we are aware, we can start identifying that the ideas and thoughts that come to our mind that might not be ours. So in that sense, that influence can happen, especially for an ostensive medium. For an ostensive medium who has that specific antenna, let's call it, or a bit more receptive, there is a open door for a heavier influence and control and so on in terms of the ideas. That was my thought.
Mm-hmm. And how to explain that I see a person doing for a long period of time something that I know is not her, talking differently, behaving differently. How can I explain that?
Well, there are possible explanations for that, right? So if you are, do you know this person is a medium? Are you sure that this is not the person themselves acting up? Um, I'm going to read another item to pull the line of thought. I'm going to read another item here that is very important. Second sentence. It associates with an incarnate spirit who has its same defects and qualities. So, if you get to a point where a spirit connects itself, let's say, with a medium and involve the medium in thoughts, ideas in a way that starts to confuse the medium's ability to make their own decisions and control their own will, make decisions based on their own thoughts. There was still an element that allowed that to happen between the medium and the spirit. But as I was saying, it is possible in certain specific cases, in a bit more severe cases, where mediums that are not working towards creating that protection level in terms of their thoughts, in terms of studying, understanding how their mediumistic characteristics work, feeling and identifying what type of spirits are getting closer to them and when they are being used by spirits or not. All of that is a work that the medium needs to put in to create that level, that buffer of protection. Someone who is not aware, but it has a big capacity of mediumship, ostensive mediumship, but not aware, doesn't create a protection, doesn't elevate its thoughts in terms of associating to good ideas, good work, it might open doors for other spirits to identify that as a prey and connect to it. And it start the process of slowly controlling and connecting it closer and closer and closer to the point where it's so connected to the medium's thoughts that it can manipulate the medium in that sense. What do you think, Guilherme?
I think that's right. And I always like to bring that to the experience we saw, like the cases we saw. And unfortunately, I had the opportunity to experience some cases where the person lost completely the ability to perform its own activity, its own wishes, if you like. They were an entirely different person, if you like. And in one particular case, a young man, he was crawling like a dog, barking like a dog, running, and it's pretty sad. We have a lot of examples like that in the Spiritist Review, Morzine cases. There is I think it's a chapter from Kardec only speaking about that in a particular city in the French Alps. And you need to see to believe, and that's what people call possessed, right? And he's sad to start with, can be scary, but it's our obligation to help as well. So how is that possible? What is the connection between spirit A and B to allow that to happen? We'll never will know exactly what is the connection that allows that to happen, but after a period of time, with a lot of care, love, dialogue, you start to be able to talk to the spirit to understand a bit what's going on. But I don't wish that people see that, right? And coming back to Silas' question, the third one, is that why the Catholic Church does not accept it? I don't know. I have very little to no knowledge about what they do, why they do. But I can say that about any human being, despite his religious orientation, it is not pleasant to see. It is not pleasant to see.
No, I'm not. I think you were just talking about churches in general, not necessarily a specific one. But your question about what's behind somebody who I know that might be acting differently, and it's not them. It just ties back quite nicely to the second question after this one that we saw in the Spirit's book that Kardec asked. And I just happened to have it. So let me bring that again here. And this is just a short answer. I would definitely recommend reading these parts because these parts will connect to other parts in the Spirit's book. So the following question was, if there's no such thing as possession per se, there is the cohabitation of two spirits in the same body. May a spirit nonetheless find itself dependent on another spirit so that it sees itself subjugated or obsessed by it to such a degree that its own will is in some way paralyzed? Which is exactly what you asked in the example you're giving. And I can see here the question that Elsa started our comments with, asking if it's possessed and subjugated the same thing.
Depends who you ask. Because a lot of people fluctuate between one and another. The way I see someone that's subjugated is something that happens temporarily, not for a long period. And someone that has been possessed is someone that will be under this type of influence for days, sometimes for days. So that's, in my mind, that's the way I make a difference, right? There are thousands of different levels of influence. For example, you're a very calm person having your tea, then you get your mug, you throw on the floor because nothing has happened and you just did. This is a mild influence. Somebody came very angry close to you, just picked up that energy, and you did. Imagine that 100 times more. That will you be like that for like an hour, 2 hours of your day, that you're not yourself. That's a kind of subjugation, right? For a period, and that's it. But when we talk about possession, it's something that stays, and really stays very, very long time. And I've seen that for more than a week. And you can try to do everything you can, and nothing works. Nothing works. In that case, you feel like powerless, really, because you try everything you try everything you study, you ask for help for people that has more experience than you, and nothing happens. And in one particular case, we were helping. The family were desperate and took the young boy to exorcist. He was beaten. He was beaten. And when she asked us again, when we came to her house, the boy was hurt. So it depends who you're talking to. It depends of the way you try to help, but the mechanism is the same. The duration, the length of the influence is the key. But on the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you call. It really doesn't. What is important is that we have someone that's suffering, and that suffering is stay for a period or a long period, and that's the way I see.
Yeah. You talked about exorcism, and I think there's a couple of comments mentioning that as well. I'm going to show a video in a second. It talks a bit about that. But there are good points in this answer that I want to relate to that. So, to this question, the spirits answered that. So the question was if there is such a thing as a cohabitation or a subjugation or obsession to a degree that the medium's will be paralyzed because of that obsession or subjugation. And yeah,
Something that just came to my mind.
yeah,
That's another scenario as well. When we talk about subjugation, possession, we are kind of related one to one. One incarnated, one spirit incarnated, one spirit discarnated, right? But there are scenarios that there is one spirit incarnated and several spirits just jumping in and out, in and out, in and out. And I forgot the name of the author. They call that spiritual condominium. But basically, is a queue of spirits, and that's jumping one and out, one and out. And I had one example as well. We had to assist, and that was something really, really impressive. And we could see the difference. And that was not like, I'll give you 10 minutes time to relax. No, it was one after another all the time. So there's a tremendous amount of situations. But once again, always the same mechanism.
Before I read the question, so one thing you mentioned, and in connecting to Silas' question, um, in terms of is it dangerous and so on, the danger is always there because it affects the people's mental health, it affects the people's physical health, it might affect the way they are living their lives, interacting in society. So of course it's dangerous, but it always go back to there is a way of helping them. The medium itself has the ways to control that, to understand how it works, to stop that from happening. I'm going to get that in a second. But it's not by ignoring and denying that these things exist that we help people. What we need to do is need to understand and investigate. Remember, mediumship, you always say that mediumship is a natural phenomenon, something that is around. It happens. It's not an illness. It's not magic. It's a natural phenomenon. And just like anything else, needs to be understood, it's studied, and so we can help others. I'm going to read the answer now for the question. So the answer was yes, it is possible to happen. You must understand, however, that this kind of domination never occurs without the participation of the one who suffers it, either through weakness or desire. Same thing that was also mentioned in the previous question. In its common acceptance, the word possession presumes the existence of demons. But since there are no demons in this sense, and since two spirits cannot simultaneously inhabit the same body, there can be no one who is possessed according to the idea normally attached to the word. Possession means ownership, that's why. And if we know that a true spirit who is connected to your body cannot disconnect completely, that's why the term possession is a term that's not the best to reflect those situations. But they started to mention something interesting here. This term is usually associated to demons. That's the other reason why you should avoid kind of portraying it like that. Because we know also through Kardec that there are no demons. There are no beings that were created by God. If God is perfect, good, just, there are no demons or beings that were created to do evil for eternity. What we have are spirits that just like us, but going through different moments in their journey, they might be less inclined to help and progress and so on. They might be suffering, and because of their suffering, they want to make others suffer and so on. So this association of that demonic possession is a good initial step to try to understand the phenomena that happens in a few cases. I want to bring a video here to help us, I guess, exemplify the teachings from the spirits around this type of happening of exorcism and possession. So let me put it on. I think it's
exorcism. Does exorcism exist on Spiritism or not? Well, yes and no. We don't use the word exorcism, we use disobsession, which is a bit different. Disobsession, for example, you feel like you have a bad spirit or evil company that is really making your life a hell, making your life really difficult. How do you deal with that? Well, there's certain ways to deal with it. First, if you have access to a Spiritist center around you, perhaps you should go there, talk to someone there, because the Spiritist centers do have mediums and people who have studied a lot Spiritism that can help you with this obsession. But if you don't, if around you there's no Spiritist center, there's some things you can do about it. First, perhaps you should look for someone you trust, someone from your family, maybe a religious person that can help you to understand the situation, to deal with it. Second thing, pray. Pray is always a very helpful medicine against anything, including obsession. How do you pray? Perhaps you should pray with your own words. You don't have to use a established way of praying. Just be honest, be sincere, talk to God about your pains, about what you're feeling. Talk like you're talking to a friend of yours. Talk to God. Tell God what you're feeling, why you're feeling bad, what are you feeling, and ask God's help to go away from this situation. Third, and perhaps the most effective way to get rid of an obsession is change your way of behaving. We behave in a certain way, and then we attract these spirits that perhaps don't like us for things we have done in the past lives, perhaps, and they are attached to us. Once you start changing the way you behave, they leave you. Why do they leave you? Because you're not on their interest anymore. Say, for example, you drink a lot, or once you stop drinking, these spirits that are around you that love drinking as well, they will leave you. Say they are influencing you to commit a crime, to steal some money from the company you work for. Once you decide not to do so, and you start taking that away from your mind, they will leave you. They look for someone else that do accept their advices. So obsession is something that you can deal with it by changing the way you behave, changing the way you see, by studying a lot, study philosophy, study spiritism, study religion, whatever, that can help you to strengthen your moral behavior. That's probably the key word on this obsession.
What do you think?
I think it's a good advice, right? But the way people approach is different, right? Normally, when you're feeling weird, right, because you start acting weird without knowing what's going on, first thing your family will say, let's go to the doctor, right? It's normally like that. If you do have any kind of spiritualist information, or if you are familiar with, then you start to consider that, yeah, that's a spiritual thing, and then let's try to find a spiritist institution to help. But they are not everywhere, right? And perhaps in Brazil we can have few institutions per city, but it's not the case everywhere in the world. So how to deal with that? Changing our moral, as he said, is very important. It's very important. That would be the first step. The first step. I used to say that the best way to create a shield is to work helping others, do charity. Every time you help someone, you create a benefit for yourself. And when you do that, you are also showing to those that are trying to have a kind of payback sometime that you have changed, or at least you're trying to change. And then you start to create a different atmosphere for yourself. Deal with that by your own, it's very difficult. I don't see how you can deal with that. If we're talking about a serious case of influence like we're talking here, very unlikely you'll be able to handle it by yourself. Very unlikely. You need assistance. But if you don't have any place to go to have assistance, yes, pray. Always pray. Any situation, pray. And change your behavior. And if you do not have an institution that understand what's going on because they have different beliefs, if they are doing anything good, if they are praising God, praising Jesus, get closer to them. Get close. Oh, in my country or in my city, in this country, don't have that kind of thing. Fair enough. Go to a church near you. Try to listen to the gospel. Try to listen to good advices. Try to change who you are. And that's is the first step, I would say. I'm thinking here how to deal with that if around you no one understands what's going on. It's not easy. And I guess many people have been burned a few centuries ago exactly because no one would understand. It's the devil, isn't it? Burning. So complicated. It's still complicated.
Yeah.
I know in some part of the world still have people that don't really understand at all how to deal with that. And I also know that in some psychiatric institutions, even back in Brazil, there are plenty of people that end up over there and stay there forever. And the case were spiritual, in the beginning at least. So it's not easy. It's not a joke. Cannot take that lightly. We need to seek advice and to look internally. If we are under that kind of impression, that kind of influence, if you still have the condition to think still have the condition to evaluate yourself, try to look inside, see what can you do to help yourself to be a better person, because that will help the whole process. It's easy when you have, let's say, a spiritist group near you, but when you don't, I saw things that make me think it's not that easy.
I think the another key point that I also mentioned is like the study. And if you are going through something, or if you know somebody who's going through something, and even though they might not know, it's a medium, this person is a medium, and it might be under influence, under control of specific spirits. I think there's a part of the medium's book also that explains to us that any natural, voluntary, involuntary manifestation. So the people that are not mediums, they are not aware and in control of when a specific phenomena occurs or so on. That is just a lack of study, preparation, understanding, and so on. Because for the majority of the cases, with study and understanding and practice and so on, the medium starts to get, there's multiple assets they need to use to get something under control and get protection. Studying and understanding what is mediumship, how does it affect you, how does it work for you as a medium, in which situations that happens, how, those are the things that will help you understand and control that ability, for lack of a better word, from going away of a moment where you don't have control when it happens, how it happens, and so on, to a place where I know when it happens, I will allow it to happen when I want it to happen, based on my understanding how it works, the studies, the mechanism behind it. If I'm using it towards a group or a church or whatever it is that is helping others with that ability, I will have a connection with spiritual friends that are also working towards a greater good in that specific group. Those spiritual friends will help guide which spirits to channel through my mediumship, in which moments, and so on. So there's a lot around how to help that. So when you go back to Sila's question about churches not antagonizing it because of possible dangers of the spirits overrunning or taking over, there is help around to be given, but it starts with one person. It's either you helping the person to guide them, or if you yourself are going through looking for a place where you can research, looking for a place where you can get help on that sense, and start to understand, identify what are the possible things in your life that you still entertain. There might be the cause where you're opening doors for spirits with less elevated inclinations to connect to you, to see in you a friend who has similar interests. It's work. We always go back to saying that being a medium is a big commitment. Is a work that you need to take on, because all of those things, it takes time, it takes education, it takes discipline. But that is the way you move away from a situation like that.
Rafael, we need to be very clear. The cases we're talking here about possession, subjugation, is not what we used to say work as a medium. Period. These events are out of control on the streets, on your work site, whatever. It's not what happens in an organized and serious mediumship meeting. It does happen because you have, as we've spoken already, this is physical, this is natural. So you have that sensibility, right? But let's not mix both together. They're totally different, right? Because if we start to talk about both together, people may be scared to death because I don't want to be a medium.
No, I think what I meant was that a situation like this is like a crisis. It's a medium in crisis who needs to get out of the crisis. And to get out of the crisis, you definitely need an intervention. You need help outside. But together with that, the intervention will never be fully successful if the medium itself doesn't bring with it all of these other attributes. Because the same thing that allowed that subjugation to happen in the first time, if that is not cut in the root, it'll happen again. So, of course, if somebody's in a level where he's going through a crisis, where he's taken over by his spirits, it's a moment where he needs an intervention, he needs help from others. But that needs to come together with their own commitment.
And how would be the best way to help someone that is suffering through this process? Let's say a person is having subjugation once a week, or even you have a possession case. Which is the best way to help him or her? What would we do? Because we know nothing, right? We are really scared because it can be very scary. We are scared, right? And what should we do? Which position should we take? You see through the books that we're talking about moral ascension, means that you are morally above what is going on there, right? And that's very difficult because if we are on earth, that means that we all not that different after all, right? But we can be more persuasive if we do less mistakes on our own life. If you don't give bad examples, we have a little bit more persuasion, right? But the only way I see to help them when this is happening, and people may say that I'm crazy, but is with love. Approach them with the maximum love you can give. Trying to not judge, not to spank or anything else. Receive them with a lot of care, a lot of love. Because on the end of the day, the spirit that is there is missing that for so long that sometimes when we come with that states of mind, that's the best help we can give at that time. Treat with respect. You're not beating the spirit at all. He's laughing at you. You're beating the poor man or woman that's suffering already. He'll be hurt after all. So treat with love, respect. Try to have a conversation if you can. What do you want? What can we do for you to help you? And in parallel, seek advice, seek support. And the process can be painful. There is no magic wand as such that you will ask for an intervention from someone that will fix that like that. It's a process, like Rafael said. It's a process. It can be a lengthy process, but at the end of the day, we all can overcome that. We all.
There is what I would add to your list is there is a specific chapter in the Medium's book, which is called Obsession. and it's chapter 23, and it pretty much describes a bit of that mechanism, how it works, situation that it works. When is the mild case, when it's a bit more severe case, and it also describes, as I said, I just brought a little snapshot of the chapter, the means of combating obsession, and it's all the things that we said already. But I think Guilherme touched a very important point, which is understanding that a spirit, regardless of the situation and the suffering that they might be causing to us or to others around us, to the medium, they are a person just like us. So there is something around that spirit needs help with. And instead of looking at it from a demonizing perspective, we need to look at it from a loving perspective, from someone who is suffering, who needs care, who needs help. And that is tricky as well. But understanding that in the first place is one of the first steps to kind of help us, and if you're a medium going through a situation like this, the medium to start change the nature of what is the link and the connection between the medium and the spirit, from something of hate and suffering and humiliation and issues, to something of, let me help you, how can I help you, and stopping giving way to the spirits and so on, but trying to understand what is behind the situation. I think that's a point that we need to make every time we're talking about mediumship, and mediumship that gets to a point that is so unbalanced that it becomes an issue. Usually that's how it starts, and then you try to figure out what's going on, what's happening, until you realize it is a mediumistic issue. Lost my line of thought.
It is a complicated case, right? I mean, there's a lot of material to be studied, to analyze. Myself, I went through several cases in Morzine described in the Spiritist magazine. I went into the library to find the view of the doctors, not the Spiritists, the doctors, and that was real. That was not one or two people, it was a chunk of people in a particular city. So there's a lot of things that worth to study and to try to understand. But if I want to say my final words to people is, there's no magical wand, right? I'll take this person here and that's it, will be over. There's no such a thing like that. Keep your patience. Don't lose your balance, because you can only help people if you are in condition to help. If you lost your plot because it is frightening and because he's my relative or whatever, won't make things better. And love, a lot of love, because that's the only way I see to really help those cases. I don't see anything else to help them, right? Because if you do something very mechanic, it's half of the help you can give.
I would complement just saying that remember that if somebody is in a situation of need from a mediumistic phenomena and perspective, ignoring it won't make it go away. So, as I said, if you're antagonizing it, or I don't want to see this cannot happen here, it's not allowed, and so on. Mediumship is natural. So if somebody's going through something that is an issue, it's a critical issue, or is an inconvenience for the person and for the people around them, what they need is help. They need help, and the ones around them that you cannot see, the invisible ones. So let's not miss an opportunity to help by everything we said here, because that is the real danger in the situation. I think when Silas was asking the question, that it can be dangerous in a case like this. Cannot, maybe we shouldn't incentivize. The danger is not attending to that, not helping them, not understanding how it works, understanding how to make that from an unbalanced critical problem into something useful and helpful to others. And that is the perspective that we should be looking at. Our time is up, and it was a interesting topic. I have a few comments I'm going to bring up here quickly before we close. So let me just bring them here quickly. I want to say thank you, Nancy, Elza, Amaral, Luis Pascoal, Munir, Ian, Thais, who else? Hermínio, Ivonete, thank you so much for joining us. Munir brought a good case here. I'm going to have to research this one. He said Kardec gave his opinion about true possession in the Review Spirit, December 63. So the case of Mrs. Julia, I will look it up. I don't think I've read this one. And yeah, final note before we close is we opened a course. SSL is offering a course that is studying systematic study of the Mediums book, and it happens every Saturday. So if you're interested, you can find more information on the SSL webpage and Facebook. But here are the details about it. Thank you very much. It has been a great topic, and I will hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. That's bye from me, and that's bye from Guilherme. Ciao.
Tchau. E acabei aqui, tá?